The Cross River rainforest is a very special place. It is a world of green. Tall trees reach for the sky, their leaves forming a thick canopy. This canopy is like a giant umbrella. It keeps the forest floor cool and dark. Sunlight tries to peek through, creating small bright spots on the ground. The air is warm and full of the sounds of life. Birds sing beautiful songs from high branches. Monkeys chatter and play, swinging from vine to vine. The ground is soft with fallen leaves. It is a place of wonder and mystery. It is a home for many amazing animals. This ancient forest holds many secrets. Here in this green world lived a little leopard cub. Her name was Luma. Luma had soft fur with beautiful dark spots. Her eyes were big and bright, the color of amber. She lived with her mother, Mama Nyika. Mama Nyika was a strong and graceful leopard. She knew every path in the rainforest. She knew where to find the best water and the safest places to rest. Mama Nyika taught Luma everything. She showed her how to walk silently through the undergrowth. She taught her how to listen to the whispers of the wind. Luma loved her mother very much. She felt safe and warm next to her. Their home was a cozy den hidden among the roots of a giant kapok tree. It was a perfect hiding place. From there they could watch the world go by without being seen. Luma loved to watch the colorful butterflies dance in the air. She saw busy ants marching in long lines. She listened to the gentle hum of the forest. Every day was an adventure with her mother. Mama Nyika would go out to hunt, and Luma would wait patiently for her return. The smell of her mother's fur was the smell of safety. The sound of her purr was the sound of love. Mama Nyika was a great teacher. She showed Luma how to climb the smaller trees. "Hold on tight, little one," she would purr. Luma would try, her small claws digging into the bark. Sometimes she would slip, but her mother was always there to catch her. They would play games of hide and seek among the ferns. Luma would hide behind a big leaf, her heart beating with excitement. Mama Nyika would always find her. Their life was simple and happy. It was a life filled with love, learning, and the gentle rhythms of the rainforest. The forest was their kingdom, and they were its quiet royalty. Luma was not like other leopard cubs. She was very shy. When other cubs played together, Luma preferred to stay close to her mother. The loud noises of their games often scared her. She would hide behind Mama Nyika's legs, peeking out with her wide, curious eyes. The other cubs were bold and adventurous. They would chase each other up trees and pounce on imaginary prey. They would roar with all their might, trying to sound big and strong. Luma's roar was just a small, quiet squeak. She watched them from a distance, wishing she could be as brave as they were. Her heart was gentle and her spirit was quiet. Mama Nyika understood her daughter. She knew Luma had a different kind of strength. "It is okay to be quiet, my little Luma," she would say softly. "Bravery is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet courage to face your fears." Mama Nyika would encourage Luma to explore, but she never pushed her too hard. She let Luma discover the world at her own pace. Luma learned to find comfort in the small things. She loved the feeling of the soft moss under her paws. She enjoyed watching the slow, deliberate movements of a chameleon. She found beauty in the silence of the forest. One day, another cub tried to get Luma to play. He pounced near her and let out a playful growl, but Luma was startled. She quickly ran back to the safety of their den. The other cub was confused. He did not understand why Luma was so afraid. Luma felt a little sad. She wanted to have friends. She wanted to run and play like the others, but a deep fear held her back. It was like a little shadow that followed her everywhere. She felt most comfortable in the familiar space of her den, with the comforting presence of her mother nearby. Mama Nyika saw the sadness in Luma's eyes. She licked her cub's head gently. "Your time will come, little one," she purred. "One day you will find the courage that lives inside you. It is there, like a seed waiting to grow. You just need the right rain to make it bloom." Luma looked up at her mother. She did not fully understand her words, but she trusted her mother completely. She snuggled close, listening to the steady beat of Mama Nyika's heart. For now, this was all the courage she needed. The world outside could wait. One night, a strange and terrible thing happened. The familiar sounds of the rainforest were broken. There was a new sound. It was the sound of heavy footsteps and hushed human voices. Bright lights cut through the darkness. The lights danced between the trees like angry fireflies. They were searching for something. Luma pressed close to Mama Nyika, trembling with fear. She had never heard or seen anything like this before. The forest, which was always a place of comfort, now felt dangerous and threatening. The air, usually filled with the sweet scent of flowers, now smelled of something strange and metallic. Mama Nyika was alert. Her body was tense. She let out a low, warning growl. She knew this was a great danger. She pushed Luma deeper into their den, trying to shield her with her own body. The lights came closer. The voices grew louder. Suddenly a net fell from above. It was strong and heavy. It trapped Mama Nyika. She roared in anger and surprise. She fought hard, twisting and turning, but the net was too strong. She could not break free. Luma watched in horror. Her strong, fearless mother was trapped. The world seemed to turn upside down. The men pulled the net tighter. They did not see the tiny cub hiding in the shadows. All they saw was the magnificent leopard. They wanted her. Luma was frozen with terror. She wanted to run to her mother. She wanted to help her, but her legs would not move. Her little body was shaking uncontrollably. All she could do was watch as the men carried her mother away. Mama Nyika looked back one last time. Her eyes were full of fear and love. It was a silent goodbye. Luma heard her mother's distressed calls fade into the distance until there was only silence. The men left as quickly as they had come. The forest was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. It was an empty, lonely quiet. Luma was all alone. The den, which had always been a place of safety and warmth, now felt cold and empty. The scent of her mother was still there, but it was mixed with the scent of fear. Luma crept out of the den. She looked around. There was no sign of her mother. There was only the dark, silent forest. For the first time in her life, Luma was truly, completely alone. A great wave of sadness washed over her. The next few days were the hardest of Luma's life. Without her mother, the rainforest was a scary place. Every sound made her jump. The rustle of a leaf sounded like a monster. The shadow of a branch looked like a giant snake. Hunger gnawed at her belly. She did not know how to hunt for herself. She remembered her mother teaching her, but she had always been too afraid to try. Now she had no choice. She tried to catch a small lizard, but it was too fast. She tried to pounce on a beetle, but she missed. She was weak and tired. She wandered through the forest, calling for her mother. Her calls were small and weak. They were swallowed by the vastness of the jungle. No one answered. The rainforest, once her beautiful home, now seemed like a giant maze with no way out. The bright, colorful birds seemed to mock her with their cheerful songs. The playful monkeys seemed to be laughing at her. Loneliness was a heavy weight on her small shoulders. She missed the warmth of her mother's fur. She missed the comfort of her gentle purr. She missed the feeling of being safe. At night, she would find a small hole to hide in, but she could not sleep well. She was too cold and too scared. She dreamed of her mother. In her dreams, they were together again, playing in the sun, but then she would wake up and the reality of a situation would hit her again. She was alone. She had to survive. She started to pay more attention to the world around her. She watched how other animals found food. She saw a squirrel digging for nuts. She saw a bird pulling a worm from the ground. She was learning slowly and painfully. One day, she found a stream. The water was cool and clear. She drank for a long time. The water gave her a little bit of strength. She remembered her mother showing her how to drink from a stream. The memory made her sad, but it also gave her hope. It was a small piece of her mother that she still had. She had to be strong. She had to survive. Her mother would want her to. This thought became a tiny spark of light in her dark world. She had to keep going for her mother. Days turned into a week. Luma grew thinner, but she also grew wiser. She learned to recognize the calls of different birds. She learned which berries were safe to eat. She was still afraid, but her fear was now mixed with a new feeling, determination. She was a survivor. One afternoon, as she was searching for food near a clearing, she heard a sound. It was the sound of angry yapping. She peered through the bushes. She saw a pack of wild dogs. They were surrounding something. It was a small pangolin, curled up into a tight ball. The pangolin was terrified. The dogs were snapping and barking. They were trying to bite through the pangolin's tough scales. Luma's heart pounded in her chest. Her first instinct was to run and hide. The wild dogs were dangerous. Even her mother would have been careful around them. But then she looked at the poor, helpless pangolin. She saw its fear. It was the same fear she had felt when the men took her mother. It was the same fear she felt every night when she was alone in the dark. A strange feeling started to grow inside her. It was not fear. It was anger. She remembered her mother's words, "Bravery is not always loud." But at that moment, Luma felt that being loud was exactly what was needed. She took a deep breath. She climbed onto a low-hanging branch that overlooked the clearing. She stood tall, trying to make herself look bigger than she was. Then she did something she had never done before. She let out a roar. It was not a small squeak this time. It was a real roar. It was loud and fierce. It was full of all her fear, her loneliness, and her anger. It echoed through the forest. The wild dogs were shocked. They stopped their attack and looked up. They saw the silhouette of a leopard against the sky. They did not know it was just a small, frightened cub. They saw a predator. They saw danger. They hesitated for a moment, then turned and ran away, disappearing into the undergrowth. Luma watched them go, her heart still beating fast. The pangolin slowly uncurled. It looked up at Luma with grateful eyes before waddling away to safety. Luma stayed on the branch, trembling. She had done it. She had been brave. A small, quiet cub had found her roar. The sound of Luma's roar did more than just scare away the wild dogs. It also reached the ears of a human. But this was a different kind of human. Her name was Amara. Amara was a conservation ranger. She did not come to the forest to harm animals. She came to protect them. She wore a green uniform and carried a pair of binoculars. She knew the forest well. She had heard stories about poachers in the area. When she heard the roar, she knew it was a leopard, but it sounded young and distressed. She decided to investigate. Amara moved through the forest with care and respect. She was quiet and gentle. She followed the sound until she reached the clearing. She saw the small tracks of the wild dogs, and then she saw another set of tracks. They were very small. They were the tracks of a leopard cub. Her heart sank. A cub this young should not be alone. It meant something bad had happened to its mother. She knew about the leopard that had been illegally captured a week ago. This must be her cub. She had to find it and help it. Amara followed the tiny tracks. They led her through dense bushes and over fallen logs. She was an expert tracker. Finally, she saw her. Luma was curled up at the base of a tree, exhausted from her brave act. She was weak and thin. Amara's heart went out to the little cub. She knew she had to be very careful. She did not want to scare her. She sat down on the ground a safe distance away. She spoke in a soft, calm voice. "It's okay, little one," she said gently. "I'm here to help you." Luma opened her eyes. She saw the human. Her first instinct was to run. But this human was different. She was not loud and scary. Her voice was soft and kind. She did not have a bright, blinding light or a heavy net. She was just sitting there, speaking to her in a soothing tone. Luma was too weak to run anyway. She just watched the woman, her amber eyes full of caution and curiosity. Amara slowly took out a bottle of milk from her backpack. She placed it on the ground and pushed it gently towards Luma. The smell of the milk reached the hungry cub. It was a peace offering. Amara took Luma back to the Cross River Rescue Center. It was a safe place for animals that were hurt or orphaned. Luma was scared at first. The smells were different, the sounds were strange, but Amara was always there, speaking to her in that same calm voice. She gave Luma food and water. She made sure she had a warm, comfortable place to sleep. Luma slowly began to trust her. She learned that not all humans were bad. Some, like Amara, had kind hearts. She was still sad and missed her mother terribly, but she was no longer alone. Meanwhile, Amara and her team had been working hard. They had found the poachers who had captured Mama Nyika. They had rescued her. She was now at the same rescue center. She was in a large, separate enclosure where she could recover from her stressful experience. She was healthy, but she was very sad. She paced back and forth, calling for her lost cub. The rangers knew they had to reunite them, but they had to do it carefully. They wanted to make sure it was a happy and stress-free reunion for both mother and child. The day of the reunion arrived. The rangers placed Luma in a small enclosure right next to her mother's. There was a strong wire fence between them so they could see and smell each other safely. Luma was nervous. She looked around the new space and then she saw her. It was her mother. Mama Nyika stopped pacing. She stared at the small cub. Her eyes grew wide. She walked slowly towards the fence. She let out a soft, questioning sound. It was a sound that Luma knew better than anything in the world. Luma ran to the fence. "Mama!" she cried in her own leopard language. They touched their noses through the wire mesh. It was a moment of pure joy. Tears would have rolled down their furry cheeks if leopards could cry. Mama Nyika purred louder than Luma had ever heard her purr before. She licked the fence, trying to groom her baby. Luma pushed her face against the wire, soaking in the presence of her mother. The long, lonely days were over. They were together again. The rangers watched from a distance, their hearts full of happiness. Their hard work had paid off. Now that they were reunited, the healing could truly begin. The rangers opened the gate that separated their enclosures. Luma ran straight to her mother. She buried her face in Mama Nyika's soft fur. Mama Nyika wrapped her body around her cub, holding her close. She licked Luma from head to toe, cleaning her fur and checking for any injuries. She purred and purred, a deep, rumbling sound of pure love and relief. For the first time in weeks, Luma felt completely safe. The heavy weight of fear and loneliness lifted from her small shoulders. Her mother was here. Everything was going to be okay. They spent the next few weeks at the rescue center. It was a time for them to reconnect and recover. Mama Nyika was amazed at how much her cub had grown. Luma was no longer the timid, shy cub she once was. She was still quiet, but there was a new confidence in her eyes. She told her mother in her own way about her time alone in the forest. She told her about the wild dogs. She told her about the pangolin. Mama Nyika listened with pride. Her little cub had found her roar. She was a survivor. She was brave. Amara and the other rangers watched their progress. They provided them with food and a safe environment. But they knew the best place for a leopard was in the wild. The rescue center was just a temporary home. Their goal was always to return the animals to their natural habitat. They made sure Mama Nyika and Luma stayed wild. They minimized human contact, allowing the mother and cub to strengthen their natural bond without becoming dependent on people. They watched as Luma practiced her pouncing skills on her patient mother. They saw her confidence grow day by day. Mama Nyika continued to teach her daughter the ways of the leopard. She showed her how to stalk silently, even in the grassy enclosure. She taught her which sounds meant danger and which meant food. Luma was an eager student. She absorbed every lesson. The time apart had changed her. She understood now how important these skills were. She was no longer just playing, she was preparing. She was preparing for their return to the forest. She was ready to go home. The quiet cub was getting ready to become a queen of the rainforest. The day finally came for them to return to the wild. Amara and her team carefully transported Mama Nyika and Luma back to a safe, protected part of the Cross River rainforest. It was far away from any human settlements. Amara opened the door of the transport crate. Mama Nyika stepped out first. She sniffed the air, her whiskers twitching. She recognized the smell of home. She turned and gave a soft call to her daughter. It was time. Luma stepped out of the crate and into the sunlight. She blinked, her amber eyes adjusting to the brightness. The forest was waiting for them. Luma stood tall and looked around. She was not afraid. The sounds of the forest were no longer scary noises. They were familiar songs. The towering trees were not threatening giants. They were old friends. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the fresh, clean air of her home. She looked at her mother, and then she looked back at Amara. It was a look of gratitude. Then, with a flick of her tail, she followed her mother into the deep green shadows of the rainforest. They disappeared into the undergrowth, two spotted ghosts returning to their kingdom. In the years that followed, Luma grew into a strong and confident leopardess. She was not the loudest or the most aggressive hunter, but she was one of the smartest. She remembered the lessons from her time alone. She knew how to be patient. She knew how to be observant. She knew how to be brave when it mattered most. She became a leader in her own quiet way. Other animals in the forest seemed to sense her quiet strength. She was respected. She was the brave cub who had found her roar and returned home. Luma's story became a whisper on the wind, a legend in the great rainforest. It is a story that reminds us of a simple but powerful truth. Courage is not always about being the biggest or the loudest. It is not the absence of fear. True courage is facing your fear even when your heart is pounding and your legs are shaking. It is a quiet strength that can be found in even the most gentle of hearts. And sometimes, it is in our most difficult moments that we discover the incredible power that has been inside us all along.